EVT, an automotive test equipment and repair service. Your place where you can make one call to repair it all.
Welcome to this front-wheel drive CV joint and half-shaft service course. As you watch this first module and read the first chapter of your workbook, you'll learn that front-wheel drive has a history as long as the automobile itself. Many people think front-wheel drive is a recent innovation, and in some ways it is. Most passenger cars today have front-wheel drive. But the concept of using the front wheels to pull a vehicle down the road goes all the way back to the first automobiles. In this first chapter of the course, we'll review some of the primary design characteristics of front-wheel drive systems and compare them with rear-wheel drive designs. This information forms the building blocks for the rest of the course. So, even if you're familiar with front-wheel drive to some extent, it's still a good idea to study this first chapter. Most people don't know that the first patent issued in the United States for an automobile was for one that had front-wheel drive. This drawing, which was made in 1879, depicts a self-propelled buggy with a 3-cylinder engine mounted transversely over the front axle. The engine pivoted with the front axle and drove the wheels directly, which wasn't a very practical approach even for those days. Rear-wheel drive with a front frame-mounted engine proved to be the most practical method of delivering engine torque to the wheels. So for most of the early years of automotive development, rear-wheel drive was the most common layout. As the automobile continued to evolve and become more complex, new powertrain layouts were developed that made front-wheel drive a more practical alternative. Even so, the vast majority of vehicles built in this country continued to be rear-wheel drive because it worked well enough and was relatively simple. Then came the energy crisis in the 1970s. As fuel prices escalated and corporate average fuel economy standards were imposed on the nation's automakers, vehicles were downsized and made more fuel efficient. This opened the door for the introduction of a whole new generation of front-wheel drive cars that would rapidly revolutionize the auto industry. The front-wheel drive minivan also appeared at this time and created a whole new class of vehicle. Front-wheel drive was off and running and would quickly outpace rear-wheel drive as the powertrain layout of choice. Within the span of a decade, front-wheel drive had replaced rear-wheel drive on most passenger cars and minivans. For normal everyday driving, there is little difference in the way a front-wheel drive car steers, handles, and feels compared to one with rear-wheel drive. In fact, most drivers can't tell the difference without looking underneath to see which type of drivetrain the car has. But that's under normal everyday driving conditions. A difference is noticeable on wet or slick surfaces, and especially on snow-covered roads. With front-wheel drive, the steering feels more stable and predictable. The vehicle goes in the direction where the driver steers it. Steer right, and the vehicle goes right. Steer left, and it goes left. This isn't always the case with rear-wheel drive under adverse driving conditions, especially if the rear wheels lose traction. The rear end may slide around, causing the car to spin out. Consequently, the countermeasures a driver takes with rear-wheel drive in an emergency situation are different from those with front-wheel drive. Though front-wheel drive generally provides better directional stability than rear-wheel drive, many front-wheel drive vehicles have a tendency to understeer. Understeer is when a car enters a sharp turn at high speeds and wants to go straight rather than